by Dr. Raymond Taylor. The scene of the Last Supper sits at the heart of Christian imagination. A long table, bread and wine, the shadow of betrayal, and the solemn words of institution have been repeated for centuries as the founding act of sacramental theology. Yet when the text is read through the lens of Mandaean ritual, the familiar picture begins to dissolve. What remains is not the origin of a holy sacrament, but the remnant of a river meal. The supper that Christianity turned into a drama of sacrifice began as a simple act of renewal, performed by priests of the living water. In the Mandaean world, the first meal after immersion is sacred. It is called the Lofani, the meal of light. The initiate, freshly washed in running water, sits with the priest and eats bread that has been dipped in pure water. No blood, no lamb, and no wine are involved. The ritual celebrates life restored through water, rather than death redeemed through sacrifice. It is the breakfast of rebirth, taken at dawn, when the world is still quiet and the current still glimmers, with morning light. The priest immerses, blesses, and then breaks the water-soaked bread as a sign of unity with the light world. The act is not symbolic, it is cosmic. It repeats the joining of spirit and life that took place before creation. When one compares this practice with the gospel accounts, the connection is impossible to ignore. Bread and water are the essential elements. Wine appears later. In the Gospel of John, the entire atmosphere points to Mandaean ritual. There is no mention of lamb. The focus is on washing, serving, and eating. The event unfolds as a purification rite rather than a Jewish festival. Jesus rises, wraps himself with linen, washes his companions, and then breaks bread with them. This is not a gesture of humility. It is the sequence of a priestly immersion meal. The earliest layer of the tradition likely remembered this morning rite of the river sex. Later editors, anxious to make sense of it within Jewish and Roman frameworks, fused several traditions together. They took the unleavened bread of Passover, the purifying water of the Jordan, and the celebratory wine of Greco-Roman feasts, and combined them into a single evening drama. What began as a dawn meal of renewal became a twilight banquet of death. The result was a scene that satisfied Jewish custom and Roman taste, while concealing its Eastern baptismal origin. The Mandaeans have preserved the older pattern without alteration. E. S. Drower, in The Secret Adam, a study of Nasorean gnosis, Clarendon Press, 1960, describes how the priest blesses the water, immerses, and then prepares the meal. Bread is broken and dipped, prayers are spoken for light and life, and the water becomes the living witness of purity. The same sequence appears implicitly in John 13 and John 6. The bread of life is not metaphorical. It is bread that has touched the flowing current. To eat it is to share in the motion of the river that sustains all being. The statement, "He loved them to the end," in John 13, fits perfectly within this Mandaean rhythm. It echoes the hymns in which the great life sends nourishment to souls descending through the worlds. The washing of feet before the meal mirrors the first stage of the Mandaean baptism, in which the priest cleanses the lower body before immersion. Afterward comes the breaking of bread and the eating of the meal of light. The disciples are participants in a rite of remembrance, not witnesses to the founding of a new sacrament. The wine that dominates Christian memory entered the text much later. The earliest followers of the Jesus movement were still immersed in the water cults of the East. To them, water was the true element of transformation. As the movement spread westward, the imagery of wine began to replace it. Wine was the drink. The Greco-Roman gods, the symbol of joy, intoxication, and divine communion. It was natural for editors writing in that environment to substitute the cup of Dionysian religion for the bowl of living water. With that substitution, theology itself changed. The Mandaean meal of renewal became the Eucharist of sacrifice. The bread of life that once symbolized the unity of soul and current, was reinterpreted as the body of a dying God. The water that once cleansed the living became the blood of atonement. The linen towel of baptism became a shroud. Each transformation moved the ritual farther from its source until the original meaning was lost. The Gospel of John still carries traces of the older form, but even there the editors added layers of Greek symbolism that obscure the simple rhythm of washing and eating. Joran Buckley confirms that in the authentic Mandaean context, eating follows immediately after immersion. The initiate consumes bread moistened with water and drinks from a cup of light, which represents the same divine force that flows through the river itself. The Mandaeans, Ancient Texts and Modern People, Oxford University Press, 2002. The priest and initiate share the meal together as a sign that both have been cleansed. The food does not represent a deity's body or blood. It represents restoration to truth. The Church transformed this humble breakfast into a cosmic sacrifice. The theology of blood eclipsed the theology of water. The act of daily renewal became a drama of suffering. Yet within the Gospel of John, the older current still runs beneath the text. The meal of light, the basin of water, the linen towel, and the bread dipped before dawn all whisper the same origin. It was never about death. It was always about life and motion. The Last Supper, stripped of its later additions, is the Mandaean breakfast after the bath. It is the meal of remembrance that celebrates the return of light to the soul. The editor who joined it to Passover and added the wine of Rome did so to make it acceptable to new audiences. But the ritual itself belongs to the rivers, not to the temple or the empire. The water was first, the bread followed, and the wine came only when memory failed. Veritas lux mea.
Veritas lux mea.